Please stand during the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Go ahead,
Well,
sir.
as we promptly start right at 5 o'clock, which is a sign of good organization here. Purposes being, I appreciate everyone giving their time for this special meeting. Purposes to hear from Mr. Link and any possible recommendation and go over the bids that we received from the turf projects coming up. I think too, if it's open for discussion, if some input or some information wants to be given to the board on just current budget standings and some possibilities and forecast of financial areas within the district, we can do that too this evening. So, Mr. Link, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Let's go back to actually turn to the second page so we can look at the bid tabulation first.
I've got mine for you.
Okay. So on January 25th, we received open bids for the field turf project. On that, we received 2 bids, which is pretty much what I expected. The 2 contractors that are here working on site, have projects here on site, were the 2 that bid it. I'm venturing to guess that others saw that as too much of an advantage for them and chose not to. Cypher Construction, the highlighted one, is low. I want to point out a couple of things. Alternate number 1, which is demolishing the existing dugouts on the baseball and softball and building new ones that price, to be honest with you, I've never seen in my life. I can tell you that about 7 years ago, we did something out at Gibson Southern, very similar to the ones that we're doing here, and they were $260,000 for 2 of them. So I was expecting that number to be a lot higher, so that's a heck of a deal. And I've checked with the contractor, they're okay with their price, they haven't told me what they might have missed. The high contractor, Contingency, told me, so it's interesting that they beat me by the exact amount that one of the press boxes cost. He said, I wonder if they forgot to multiply by 2, and they haven't, they said they're good with their number and they're wanting to move ahead. And then alternate number 2, which is replacing the fencing at both fields, that's another really good price. Last September, I bid a project for the Boys and Girls Club down in Evansville. They were doing a turf project and they wanted to replace their fencing with vinyl coated chain link fence, and for that field, which is probably a little smaller than the softball field, on it, it was $160,000 for that one fence. Here we're doing fencing on both fields for $171, so I think both of those are really, really good prices right now.
Does that include the existing perimeter fence? Or just the fields?
Yeah. That price is just the fence
Field.
around the field.
Right.
The backstops were in the base bid on this, as well as the bleachers, the restrooms, concessions, the locker room facility, the press box. When you say the perimeter fence.
Like that goes along Hancock and up?
Like around the road.
Terry
No,
Road.
we did not
Okay.
replace that fence,
Okay.
no. We do have alternates that we will be recommending that will improve circulation with some sidewalks and some ability to control admission into the venues on there.
Which sorry for interrupting, George, that's a key one, and Danny as a former athletic director can attest. That's a real issue that at some point we really need to address as a district, because if you've ever been to a baseball or softball game, trying to, number one, keep it a safe environment and kind of manage the crowd is tough without that fencing, and ticket taking and charging admissions it's nearly impossible. I mean, Danny's done it a number of times, just when we had the privilege of hosting sectional, so much extra has to be done, and honestly, Danny, it's no offense, you guys did the best you could. It was never a good setup because the fencing wasn't there.
Okay.
So, with that being said, with 2 bids, tonight I would be recommending that the project be awarded to Cipher Construction, and this is all listed in the first page, for the base bid plus alternates 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm not recommending alternate number 5, as it was just a change in the siding to the press box. The press boxes have a brick wainscot base around them, and then above that is concrete siding on there, and this would have changed it to the siding that's on the
Field house.
hive.
The hive, yeah.
The hive on there, and the venues are far enough apart, I didn't feel like that was worth the expenditure on it.
And so 3, what is 3 then, the
All right,
additional
so
walking for?
three is, that's the walk and the fencing that we're talking about at softball to make it a secure venue, a typical venue. And then alternate number 4 is there would be a walk that would take you from softball over to baseball along the edge of the parking lot right there.
So you're not walking on the parking lot?
Right, so you're not walking on the parking lot.
Okay.
So, that's what those 2 alternates would be. And that total award amount would be $5,112,850. That includes, we're talking mostly on baseball and softball here, but that includes the turf at the football field, which is new goalposts. We're asphalting in the 1D zone, moving long jump and pole vault down into that D zone along with high jump in that 1D zone. So we're getting that reconfigured, shifting the field, I believe it's 10 feet roughly. You know, so the press box will be about 10 feet off, well, 5 feet off center of the field, but we're shifting it away to get away from how close it is to the track and that one end right there, and then adding the new concession plaza outdoor lunch area there behind the football field that serves both, that can serve both football and basketball games. It will serve into the gym as well, there on it. So,
Will they have some picnic tables or something like that, or?
we didn't include those in the bid.
But we could do that.
But yeah, and that's what I'd recommend
Go back
doing.
to
That's a, you could add later or.
Yeah, those are things you
Because we
can add
could use
later
that
and
area
not
to
pay
do-
contractor markup on.
For the high school cafeteria, the kids to go outside there and watch.
Mhm.
Lloyd originally.
Okay. Third page, one of the things that we do working with the school corporations, we track fund balances. We found it's just easier, and the things I need to know as I'm making recommendations. The bond issue is split into two different pots. So when you see that the left pot has already spent $9 million, over $9 million, you think, how could we have spent that much? Well, we didn't really spend it, we moved it over into pot number 2 there. So you can see that. So with this award and with maintaining the budgets for the steam lab renovations and elementary traffic control, I've pulled the HVAC out of this because that's a different pot of money altogether, sitting over the side. So that's project still going on, it's just not tracked in this. As you can see, by awarding this project, where that would put us in terms of a deficit in these overall budgets.
And I apologize, maybe I'm just listening. Does that include any additional contingency dollars that?
There's, I don't recall the exact number because I don't have that budget sheet with me. There is a little bit of contingency, I wanna say probably, give me just a minute. About $160,000 in contingency dollars built into this.
That's built into this?
Yeah, built into this number.
And you feel comfortable with that number?
The 160?
Yeah.
I mean, I'll feel more comfortable once we're completely up out of the ground. Once, you know, the things I can't see are the things that worry me. Yeah, but once we're up out of the ground, I would feel very comfortable with that. You know, the one thing that, you know, could happen, I've seen it happen probably maybe 25% of the time, is you get into like the football field and you get in there working it, and we get into rainy season and we end up having to come back and line stabilize it just so they can work on finishing the field. You know, that could happen. That's, you know, it just depends on the summer we have. there, and it's not because we need to line stabilize it, because you need it that strong for football to play on, it's so we can get the equipment on there just to do the work on it. So, you know, that possibility, I'm not a weather forecaster, so, hopefully it doesn't happen that way. But I do know the guys that are doing this, and they're really good.
Feeling pretty good about your hard costs, the way you've estimated and what
Mhm.
prices are coming in and stuff.
I'd like to be a little more accurate on that, but prices are still going up. I can tell you, you know, the reason they wanted this meeting is because, they need to get things locked down as quick as they
Your
can.
availability, or are you seeing much fluctuation there, or?
On certain items, right now, let's see, overhead doors are an issue, wood doors are worse than steel doors, as an issue, roofing can be an issue, but turf, I don't think that's an issue, fencing might be some issues with some pipe, the fence posts, those are, especially maybe for the backstop, but if we get them ordered enough, I mean, they're a ways away from having a backstop. I can't think of anything, lockers, the lockers in the locker room could be an issue, but again, if we get them ordered now, they're still a ways away from needing lockers.
Is most of that stuff special order stuff, or is it stock items, or what mixture?
It's, I can't think of anything that we special order, for any of these projects. It's just, there are certain items, you know, like a lot of the lockers in this area come out of Illinois, and back when they originally shut down, that they literally shut down for almost a year over there. And they used up all their reserve stock, and now they're just trying to play catch up with the demand. So.
But that being said, I mean,
That would.
we we finalized this contract today. I mean, we're locked into the
Oh,
prices
yeah,
we're paying.
yeah,
I mean, it's
oh,
not-
yeah,
it's not gonna
yeah,
fly.
I mean, the worst that could happen is, you know, you could finish the facility and be waiting on lockers. I just had a school over in Illinois that we, you know, waited 2 months longer than we should have for the lockers, but they finally came in.
But still not gonna be no more cost to us.
Oh,
Just
no,
maybe
no,
an inconvenience
no,
to
no.
wait on something.
Right. And that's, you know, we're doing a lot of work right now with Seifert and with TNG, and I can say that they are two contractors that through this whole thing have not hollered about escalating costs. They managed to deal with it. They stockpile a lot of stuff when they get the opportunity, and they buy semi-loads of things, and just, they know they're gonna need it eventually, so buy it now and have it on hand. So.
Go ahead, well, I was gonna say about those finances.
Well, thank you. What I was just gonna say is before you make your decision, I think there's some things as superintendent, let me point out that you should I feel like you should consider as you go into making the decision. So, touch base with Dr. Grissom and Mrs. Gilbert today. They've had a couple weeks to work on their own thoughts and ideas about car drop-off pickup, for example. You know, that combined with Mr. Reynolds did what was asked of him to do, take account the actual numbers there over a span of time. The numbers that he found and counted were less than what we were expecting. So even if you decided to lay some asphalt or whatever, I don't think we're gonna need to go back behind the bus barn, for example, to accommodate that. I know Mrs. Gilbert and Dr. Grissom are also really working with their staff on, could some possible policy and procedural changes, and some of those things may really help in making that a much more livable situation, and may not have to dig up ground whatsoever to make things better. If those things, so just to point out, that budget, $1,210,000 has been budgeted for that elementary school traffic budget. You know, if we could find some alternative ways that would still keep it safe and make it better than what we got, that's some dollars that could be shifted that we're not spending. Remember, the way that the bond was released, the beauty in how we were able to kind of organize that and advertise it, anything field house and connected to the junior high school that we said that we were gonna do, which includes the field house, which is already, you guys have already voted on that, and then whatever we do with STEAM labs, which is junior high tied specific, okay? Everything else, including the fields, including car drop-off pickup and everything else, the way that was structured we can adjust and move however the board would see fit on that. So for example, if Mrs. Gilbert and her staff and Dr. Gibson and his staff would come up with some interesting ideas in terms of policies and procedures that we could do and not have to spend that dollar amount at the car drop-off pickup, that would not affect in any way how we release that or advertise that bond release. So theoretically, if they could come up with something, there's theoretically could be $1 million plus of that shortfall dollars we can make. I also spoke with Mr. Pittman today over some items concerning the property at Huron. Those bids are due at 5:59 p.m. on the 14th, right before we start our regular meeting for that. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I apologize for not having it in front of me. I think the combined total minimum amount for that was a little over 300,000 or right around that ballpark number of additional funding that was never part of our budgeting or anything else that would be a windfall to the corporation moving forward. I think something we have to address too, that I know the board is extremely proud of and rightfully so in the district. The board and superintendents before me, and I hope I've continued being a good financial steward, they built up a rainy day fund that is envied by all. So as of this morning, we're sitting with a rainy day fund of $4,910,000 sitting in rainy day fund. And again, this is projection, but I have no reason to not believe what I'm about to say won't come to fruition. I've ran the numbers, I've done the looking. We're still projected to be able to put anywhere between $600,000 and $800,000 annually into rainy day fund for the foreseeable future. So even if we did the 1.2 million for the traffic or for the car drop-off pickup, even if we didn't sell the Huron property and all those other things, I know it's scary sometimes, right? When you look at, okay, we could theoretically be 2 million less in rainy day fund, but our projections in 3 or 4 years, we'd be back at that $4.9 million of where we were. You know, I also, just as superintendent, want to point out too, we have certain windows to do it right and to do it, you know, I know prices are high right now, Mr. Link, but we can't predict what the prices would be 6 years from now, could even be much more, you know, let alone 10 years from now. And with what we're doing athletically, which is a bulk of this capital project, think about minus replacing the turf X number of years down the road because of natural wear and tear. You're basically, if you choose to do all the extras with baseball, softball, minus the lights, and from what rumors I'm hearing, booster clubs are looking at buying new scoreboards for baseball, softball, minus the lighting that's there, you're practically gonna have 2 brand new baseball and softball stadiums that should last this district for decades to come. The renovations to the football area, minus replacing the turf eventually, which you were gonna have to do anyway, you're basically gonna have the issue of, at some point, looking at the grandstands and a press box way down the road. But as far as actual major work to the field itself, you're good for football and soccer there too. So I sat here and I've pondered recently, okay, athletically, and then don't forget the field house and all that's gonna bring to us. I don't know what huge ticket items athletically the school corporation is gonna have to really be that concerned about. I hope we do, because I hope the district blows up so big that we're overflowing. But consider, I'm just saying, as your superintendent, you might wanna consider that too as you go forward making the decision. You're doing a lot right now that saves a lot later. It's that old adage of, right, 2 guys walk into the boot store at the same time and one guy buys the expensive $50 pairs of boots that's gonna last him for 10 years. The other guy buys a $10 pair of boots, but he's replacing those boots every year. Well, he ends up spending double the amount at the end of the time because he's done the work. I think that's a similar situation the board has to look at right now too. Mr. Shaw, or you guys, any other questions as far as finances for the district that I could answer?
Well, to expand on what you just said, I mean, we'll be set athletic-wise for a long time, but there's no big ticket items anywhere in any of the buildings.
I think, and this would be natural anyway, Mr. Redmond, I mean, eventually roofs are gonna need to be replaced.
But we've always budgeted
But-
for those.
but
We
that's
continue
always
to
been-
budget for those.
budget
That's
for
not
those.
anything
I mean,
unusual or new.
I think as far as adding on to school buildings or even, I think we've got room, we would have to have beyond expectation student growth to where we would ever come to the board and looking
Which if
at.
we had that kind of growth that we needed to add on, then the revenue would be there.
Well, you got your ADM count that would
Yeah.
help pay for that, so that would be, I would love to have that problem.
But also, I mean, if we don't do it, you're gonna have half a new facilities with old-looking dugouts and old-looking, you know,
Yeah,
it's not gonna look good.
We won't do it right.
You're gonna do it, let's just do it, bite the bullet, do it right, and it's not gonna hurt us, and it's not
We
gonna
got
raise
alternatives
taxes.
here to come up with.
You know, main things, don't raise taxes, nothing like that, or out there, and that's not gonna affect the public anyway.
Like I said, the price on those dugouts and that fencing, that is not what I was expecting at all.
So
And
we're
it's-
1.5 million over the original budget, which in today's times and everything that's going on is not that big of a surprise, I wouldn't think to anybody. But we got 1.2 million that we may save at the Hatfield Burris drop off,
Yeah,
or anything up to that.
Right.
So we're really only taking
About a
300,000,
third
but
of
then if
that,
we
or
sell
fourth of
that,
Mhm.
that's the 1.5 million, but then we've got 4.9 million in rainy day, which in my opinion is very much close to too many tax dollars to be just sitting
To
there,
be
so.
said in there. And is there any contingency against spending the rainy day on capital or anything like that? So
Rainy
we
day
could
can
do
be
that.
spent on anything.
Anything from
Anything
a
other than
calculator up to,
salaries. Anything other than personnel.
I can't do personnel.
It is too much to be set in there,
Yeah.
definitely.
I mean, we're almost 50% of our annual budget.
Yeah, I know, it's something we're all very proud of and rightfully so, but our amount of dollars in rainy day fund is almost unheard of in school world. Not even in larger districts, it's almost
And,
unheard
and
of.
I feel like serving the public, we can't say, no, we can't do this when we're sitting on this piggy bank, you know? I don't think that's right.
No, and like the field house will have the track in it and other stuff that'll be open to the public. We built this walk, you know, we're gonna have another walking area, big area that's always open to the public out front, baseball fields now, softball fields, so.
I had a question about furnishings. I mean, like, even from the basketball hoops, mats,
Basketball hoops are in the,
or in that.
the easiest way to think about it is anything that is permanently affixed to the building, like a basketball goal, is in the project. Things like furniture, we wouldn't run that through them, because by the time they get done building it, who knows what the next greatest things, you know, it's kinda like computers. You know, we never bid them at the same time we bid the building project, cause they'd be 2 years old by the time you ever got to turn them on and use them. And more than likely, they're gonna be cheaper and better by the time you get to actually needing them. So, wrestling mats are in, the
Scoreboards.
scoreboards are in,
But not scoreboards for the baseball, softball,
no,
football.
no.
And I think one thing, just for transfer, I think we decided the bleachers in the field house, so we wanted to be portable.
Yeah,
They are not in.
they're not, we did not take that alternate.
Right.
The curtains
Curtains are in,
in the field house.
yep, we took that alternate.
There was.
Track surface, we took that alternate.
I like the covers for the safe softball, but do you have to cover it if you have the AstroTurf? No,
No.
so you don't have
No.
field covers or anything like that?
It's got a complete drainage system underneath the whole thing. It could be pouring down rain, the first fields we ever did, probably 12, 15 years ago, were down in Evansville. I think that was the first ones I did. I can remember they were playing sectionals one rainy October night, or it might have been even November. And I was watching the highlights on the news, and they flashed over to Spencer County, and they're playing over on a grass field, and it was rainy, muddy, you couldn't even tell who was who. When they flashed over to Evansville, it was raining like cats and dogs, but all the players were clean as a whistle, you know, it drains. I can remember turf salesman one time told me, he said, well, you know, this system will drain 100 inches of rain an hour. And I said, if it's raining that hard, I'm not worried about the turf field, I'm looking for my boat. So,
Well,
but no.
And this may be something Danny could chime in too from his AD experience. I think with the fencing and the upgrades to the facilities in terms of the actual stadium facilities, I think that makes us even more attractive in the eyes of IHSAA in terms of hosting regionals, sim-estates even. And man, anytime we can get home turf advantage on those, we want that. That's a good thing.
And the areas like on the baseball field, the pitcher's mound, the batter's box, those are inserts. So, because you will have to replace those more frequently than you do the whole field, just because of, I've got one now, 2 years later, the pitchers have worn a hole, for standing up there doing this on the turf.
And softball pitchers are notorious for tearing it up because they drag it.
So those are inserts that you just, when you wear out, you cut them out and put a new one in.
And I think one really, if you accept these bids, I think one thing to remember, it's not just a press box. It's an upgrade to where there'll be a dressing room, locker room for varsity underneath.
Those kids won't have to be going.
So yeah, the days
Yeah,
of,
that's nice.
and Danny, that's rare in baseball, softball at the high school level to have that facility on the field for those kids.
The only time we've ever had that opportunity is for tournaments, sectional places like that, and most sectional sites don't even offer those kind of dressing rooms and things.
Yeah, and George, correct me if I'm wrong, in the press box locker room design, there is a bathroom,
Single fixture bathroom in there.
and that's separate than the other.
But it's
press-
not accessible from the locker room, it's accessible from the outside.
Right, and that can be
It'd
used
like
for-
for the officials, the
Right, right,
umpires.
right, and then we'll have our own separate for the
Yeah,
public.
there's a separate,
Right.
there's a separate set of restrooms and concession stand for the public.
And that's at both, one set at the baseball field, one set at the softball field too.
Is there room for that at the softball field, or will you be
Yes.
moving the
Yes.
field?
Yes.
No, we're not moving the field.
No, we're not moving.
That'd be lights and
So you need a motion.
Yeah, is
Make a motion
everybody
that we-
done?
oh, sorry.
yeah, I just wanna make sure, okay.
Make a motion that we accept the, what is it, bid from Seifert Construction with alternatives 1, 2, 3, and 4.
I second it.
Cindy seconds, all in favor? I vote. Approved, sir.
Thank you. Miss Summer contractor at the notice of
Need a
proceeding.
motion to
Now
adjourn.
now the real talk. What's going on Thursday and Friday?
He's still got his cameras on.
Whenever you adjourn it.
Make a motion,
Adjourn
we
this, so
adjourn.
Bill will shut that off, please.
Patrick makes